Hello, world. We are school psychos. I'm Mr. Z.
And I'm Mr. G. How's it going?
Yeah. And,
Who are the
guys who are going to tell you about interesting stuff? School cycles!
Ooh.
Man, check out that disclaimer.
That
disclaimer, though.
Oof. Ooh.
Ooh la la.
hello, world. We are school psychos. I'm Mr. Z.
Hey guys, I'm Mr. G.
And we are school psychologists. Honest, we are. No lie. Yeah, anyway, this is the fourth installment of our series Under the Covers. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're two school psychologists. Under the covers, what we're going to do is we're going to look at album cover art and we're going to pretend one of our students drew the picture. And then we're going to pretend that it's part of a personality assessment that we're then going to analyze, looking at themes, telling us what that means. For today, we have Maroon 5's Songs About Jane. Fun fact, I'm not sure if you knew this, Mr. Z, but Maroon 5, they originally, prior to being Maroon 5, they were known, a majority of the members of the band were known as Kara's Flowers. And when Songs About Jane came out, they went under the name of Maroon 5, which kind of gave them their kick to what we know them to be today.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I did not know that, Mr. G. But yeah, so today we're going to be looking at three major talking points of this album art. We're going to be looking at the placement. We're going to be looking at the size of the image and its features. And also we're going to be looking at body parts.
All right, well, let's jump right in. All right, so I'm going to start us off with, as you said, talking about the placement. So to me, I see this pulling to the left. And when something is pulling to the left, that could mean impulsiveness, or it could mean self-orientation. So when I say self-orientation, what that means is that you're more focused on your own needs than you are of those around you. Now that could be viewed in a negative or a positive light. What do you think about that, Mr. Z?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty consistent with what I saw too. This is clearly a figure that's more towards the left of this image. Again, the theme of impulsivity, acting out. Also, perhaps some uncertainty there. I'm uncertain about that myself, but we'll see if there's any other connections we'll find to this. But speaking to that whole self-orientation thing, I'm going to dive right into a little color theory here because there's a lot of red in this. And the reason why I'm bringing up the color theory is because the amount of red in this image may suggest that it is somebody who is more concerned with the environment than who they are. So, I don't know, a consistency, an inconsistency, I don't know. Your point made me think of that. So, yeah. Any other thoughts, or you want to jump into the next point?
Yeah, there was the one other one being that while it is to the left, it also reaches the bottom of the page, which could signify a need for support. But I'll jump into size if you're good.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So I didn't see anything really about the size. I did notice though, in my opinion, these are long strokes. You know, you see through the hair, through the body. They're very clean and long. There's really no interruptions. And that could mean controlled behavior. Not really sure how that plays into it so far with what information we do have, but that's all I have on size. Did you have anything?
No, Mr. G, I saw the long strokes as well, and I'm wondering if that also clashes with the placement of the image to the left, because long strokes tend to indicate somebody who has controlled behavior as opposed to the left position of the image that might suggest somebody who acts out. So I don't know, maybe they're conscious of how they're acting out and it's very intentional that they're perhaps misbehaving.
Yeah, I mean, if we were even just to try to thread what we have so far, hypothetically, an environmental protester might be impulsive in that they're not conforming to society's points, the corruption at the time, but they're also very controlled in their organizing events and kind of protests. So just kind of going in that direction a little bit. Do you want to get us jump started on body parts?
Yeah, Mr. G, I'd be overjoyed to do that. So I noticed that the hair is emphasized, so that might suggest narcissism, perhaps. Also, I see some full lips in conjunction with that emphasized hair. So did you notice that too, Mr. G? And if so, what theme would you say is brought out by those two, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, yes. I was also noticing the hair being emphasized. It could also mean a sexual preoccupation, but there's nothing sexual here, right? This is... Oh, wait, she doesn't have any clothes. So, yeah, it could be a little bit of a preoccupation. I was also considering the narcissism route, as you said. I agree with you. I would move us down to the eyes, if you're good with that. Actually, sorry, you were talking about the lips. I agree. I see full lips, which could be sensual, so it could relate to that theme of sexual preoccupation. But it could also mean dependency. And with dependency, that could tie back into how it reaching the bottom of the page, there being that need for support. What do you think?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. G, I think you're spot on with that. Very, very good observations there. And again, I'm looking at this image, and again with the emphasized hair, that may also suggest compensation for perhaps some inadequacy, so to speak. I think that might also be related to the figure looks like her legs are crossed in this too, so that might be another consistency there. Want to jump into the next body part down if we're going top down on this? We talked about hair and lips, so if there's anything else you wanted to add about that, or if you want to jump to the next one.
Yeah, I think I will jump to the next one. I'll just make a note of eyes. Since the eyes are closed in this drawing, that could be hostility. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Z, but with red, couldn't that also be associated with anger, or no? Am I way off base here?
Not necessarily. I mean, if I'm looking more at the red on this, it speaks to an extroverted nature, perhaps somebody who is active, somebody who's competitive. So maybe if we were to say an extreme competitive nature, maybe bordering on some aggression to some degree, depending on how that's played out. The red may also, this I would say is an excessive amount of red, maybe, arguably. So that may suggest somebody's desire to dominate. So again, there is some relation to the aggression there. But on the same theme of aggression, you touched on the eyes being closed. And you talked about the size of the drawing too. I consider this to be relatively large. So, and that's also another indicator of aggression. So hand in hand with the hostility and everything else that we're seeing. So I don't know, maybe perhaps some slight disagreement on the size of the drawing, but to me it's a consistency with everything else there.
Yeah, I think this is where we might diverge a little bit. I mean, I would yield that it's large in the sense of the whole thing is not fitting on the page. I kind of interpret it as like kind of in proportion and everything. I didn't think of it as large, but you'd have to put her like diagonally on it to fit the whole thing on the page. So I will agree with you ultimately about it being large. I guess we can move on down. What would you like to focus on next?
Well, if we're moving down from there, I mean, we've got some arms and some fingers in this image. I didn't see anything of note with that, unless you did. I mean, this doesn't seem to be, to me, somebody who may struggle in some interpersonal relationships and anything else like that. But, I mean, do you have any disagreement or anything I may have missed about that?
Well, I did have a kind of a question to you because, I mean, their arms, their fingers. I was like, could we look at those fingers and consider them talon-like fingers? A little bit. I know I might be kind of like pushing the envelope a little bit, because if it was talon-like fingers, it could be like primitive aggression. But I don't know. It's almost like I just wanted to talk about the fingers, but I don't think ultimately they're talon-like. What do you think, though?
Yeah, Mr. G. I mean, I didn't see those as being talon-like when I was looking at this image, but I mean, I don't think there's any harm in saying that they are, because the primitive aggression we're seeing as just being another factor contributing to the overarching theme of aggression seen in this.
Yeah, so I guess we can, you mentioned the legs. I was considering them to be pressed together, which could mean rigid or tense. But what were you saying about them being crossed?
Yeah, I mean, it was just based on something I'd heard about, like, crossed legs being an indicator of inadequacy in one way or another. So that's the only thing I was thinking about with that in relation to, let me see what I had in my notes about that. Oh, the emphasized hair also being a marker of inadequacy there.
Yeah. I'll bring us down to there being no feet. As we've learned in our program, when you have no feet, it could mean you're stuck. I kind of was thinking, if a student had drawn this, if we were to pretend a child drew this, you could consider that the child wants to move because they have drawn legs, but having not drawn feet, it's like they don't really know how to utilize that independence a little bit. I know we're getting a little like nitty gritty there. Did you have anything to add on like the feet or lack thereof?
No, I mean, other than the fact that you could say it's an omission and that indicates a repression or denial of whatever that feature is or whatever that feature may represent. So kind of going hand in hand with what you're saying about the autonomy thing. So I'm wondering if that denies any sense of autonomy that this individual may have. Yeah, so I mean, anything more about that? Because I could jump into the next features that are in this.
By all means, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'm looking at this and I'm seeing there's some flowers in this. And that was interesting to me because flowers indicate a need for love. And so when I'm looking at this album and the track listing and everything, there's, I think, at least a couple songs that have the word love in the title. And I believe Harder to Breathe is a song on this album. And there's a line in that song about when it gets cold outside and you've got nobody to love or something like that. And I think that just is another, I guess, piece of data we can relate to this. Any comment about that?
Well, yeah, I noticed that just as you, and kind of jumping off of that. So unless my information is faulty, Songs About Jane was like inspired by Adam Levine, who is of Maroon 5, Adam Levine's relationship with his ex-girlfriend. So seems like maybe some, it's like what happens when two people break up. There is that like need for love, and there could be some different, obviously some different emotions happening. With a relationship, you have that need for support. When you're broken up, then you have to go, date new people. So you need to have that extroversion. You kind of gotta force yourself. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I really like how you tied that together with the whole backstory and everything. Like, I see this. I didn't dig deep at all into like the background or anything, but I'm seeing this. I'm like, who is Jane? And I'm just thinking about everything else we're seeing with the theme of a need for love and the dependency and the denying autonomy, perhaps, and what that might mean and what that might symbolize if the thought of a relationship or a former relationship was in mind.
Yeah, so I just thought that was a pretty little interesting tidbit. I don't think I had anything else. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I had a question, actually. I'm looking at this. What does it look like is in this figure's hands?
I was wondering about that. I ultimately determined maybe it's like a record player, of a record player would be open and have like a disc playing. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I thought something very similar. Like, I thought it was a music box of sorts, and so I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing some stuff coming out of that box. A lot of black coming out of that box. There's a blackened, like a dense blackening there, which symbolizes perhaps depression or anxiety. So, and even if we're going to look at black as an auxiliary color, it might symbolize the end of life of a relationship, the anxiety and the depression laced within these songs about a relationship or other things, either inter or intrapersonal. So that was the last point I had.
Yeah, I like that point. Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, okay, so black can mean like depression, just the negative feelings, and a lot of musicians, they channel those negative feelings into these pop songs of like just kind of get that out of their system. So yeah, I think that's a really cool point that you noticed. You're welcome. Do you have anything else? All right, well, it seems that you have reached the end with us. If you notice something that we missed, let us know. Comment down below. If there's an album cover art that you want us to analyze, let us know. We want to just keep doing this. And we will see you next time. Rock on. Scouts honor, even though we're not Boy Scouts.
Scouts
I was a
honor.
Tiger Scout. Did you know I was a Tiger Scout?
I did not. You know what? That's a connection. I was a tiger as well. Yeah, cub. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, so